What happens when your own manager bullies a pregnant waitress and you're standing right there undercover? Bennett Fields stared at the schedule printed out on his desk, rubbing the back of his neck. It was the fourth customer complaint this month, same location. The Midtown Diner, one of 6 restaurants he'd acquired 8 years ago. It had once been the crown jewel.
Now, slipping fast.
He bought the chain from a retiring couple who'd built it from the ground up. Since then, he'd worked hard to expand without losing the heart of it. Lately, though, something was off. Reviews mentioned rude service, long wait times, and a cold atmosphere. Bennett had never met most of the newer staff at Midtown. After a few years, corporate handled most of the hiring, and he stayed busy managing the growth. But he'd never lost touch with what mattered people. That's why he made the decision. He was going in. He shaved the beard he'd had for 10 years, dyed his hair a sandy brown, and wore an old pair of sneakers and khakis. His name tag read Ben. Corporate had sent out a memo that a new trainee would be rotating through each store for observation. No one at Midtown had ever met him in person. He'd kept a low profile on purpose. The managers only dealt with his district leads. He stepped into Midtown on a Thursday morning. The lobby smelled like burnt toast and coffee grounds. The booths were half full. A young woman with dark hair tied in a loose bun was wiping down tables, her back stiff. "Hey," she said with a tired smile. "You the new guy?"
Ben.
"Yeah."
I'm Zadie.
"You'll be with me today. Hope you like walking." He liked her instantly. Her voice was kind, but you could tell she was exhausted. Her apron was stretched slightly around her stomach, maybe 5 or 6 months along, he guessed. No mention of that in any reports. Zadie showed him the ropes, how to input orders, where the to-go boxes were, how to balance trays. She moved slower than others, but never stopped. Even when a customer snapped at her for bringing the wrong side dish, she apologized and handled it with grace. "You okay?" Bennett asked when they stepped into the back. She nodded. "Just low on energy. Haven't eaten yet. You should take a break." She gave a small laugh.
Yeah.
"That's not really a thing here." Before he could ask what she meant, a sharp voice cut through the kitchen. "Zadie, what did I tell you about leaning?" The manager, a tall man with a red goatee and a clipboard, came around the corner. "If you're too tired to do the job, you shouldn't be here." "I wasn't leaning," Zadie said quietly. "Just stretching my back. I've been on my feet since 6. "That's not my problem," the man said, loud enough for the kitchen to hear. "I'm not giving you special treatment just because you're pregnant. You asked for more shifts, right? So do the work or leave." Bennett felt his stomach go tight. Zadie looked down, lips pressed together. "I need the hours. I'm doing my job. You're doing it slow. And if it affects customer service, I'll find someone else." "Understood." She nodded, shoulders tense. Bennett's jaw clenched. He kept his face neutral, but inside, heat rose in his chest. He turned and started restocking cups, forcing his hands to stay steady. The manager turned to him. "You Ben, right? Don't get too comfortable back here. This isn't a charity. You keep up or you're out." "Got it," Bennett said flatly. By lunch rush, the place was packed. Orders piled up. The kitchen fell behind. Through it all, Zadie kept going, taking plates, checking in with tables, refilling drinks. Sweat dotted her forehead, but she didn't complain. At one point, she stepped aside to rub her side, clearly in pain. The manager spotted her again. "That's it," he said. "I told you not to slow down the floor. If you can't keep pace, I'll cut your shifts. Or better yet, fire you. I've got 3 people who can take your spot tomorrow." Bennett stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "She's working harder than anyone here." The manager turned, annoyed. "Excuse me? This doesn't concern you." Bennett stared at him. "It does now." The manager blinked. "Who do you think you are?" Bennett pulled off his trainee badge and reached into his back pocket. He held up his ID, one with his real name and title. "I'm Bennett Fields." I own this place. Dead silence. Zadie gasped. The cooks froze mid-motion. The manager's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Bennett looked at Zadie. You doing okay? She nodded slowly, eyes wide. He turned back to the manager. We're going to have a conversation.
Now.
The office at the back of the diner was barely larger than a broom closet, one desk, 2 folding chairs, and a filing cabinet with a drawer that didn't close all the way. Bennett shut the door behind the manager and motioned for him to sit. The manager didn't move. His eyes darted to the ID in Bennett's hand, then to the floor. You've had enough time to think, Bennett said. Sit down. The manager finally dropped into the chair, his legs stiff. Look, I didn't mean anything by it. I treat everyone the same. That's my job. You don't, Bennett said. And it's not. He pulled out a small notepad he'd kept tucked in his apron all morning. He flipped to a page and read from it. You told a pregnant employee to either keep pace or leave. You threatened to fire her. You said you don't give special treatment, even in her condition. You said you had others ready to take her place. That's not equal treatment, that's cruelty. The manager leaned forward. You don't understand. We're short 3 people. I've been covering doubles. I can't afford for anyone to slow things down. You're not covering anything, Bennett said. I didn't see you run a table once. You stood in the kitchen barking orders while Zadie ran the floor on her own. She's slow. She's carrying another life, Bennett said, voice sharper now. And still doing more work than the rest of the team combined. The manager snorted. You think I'm the only one who talks to her like that? Ask the cooks. Ask the other servers. Nobody wants to pick up her slack. Bennett narrowed his eyes. You're just digging deeper. You're admitting there's a culture of hostility in this restaurant, and instead of fixing it, you joined in.
He stood.
Clean out your locker. You're done. The manager's mouth dropped open.
Wait.
Hold on. You're going to fire me?
Just like that.
There's no second warning for threatening an employee's livelihood during pregnancy. You don't belong in management. You don't belong anywhere near people. The manager stood abruptly, knocking his chair into the wall. You think you're doing her a favor? She can't even get through a double without sitting. Bennett opened the door. Get out. The man stormed past him, muttering under his breath. Bennett followed him out into the hallway and turned toward the employee locker area. Zadie was there, quietly tying her apron tighter. She didn't look up until he stopped a few feet away.
He's gone, Bennett said.
She blinked. Gone. I fired him. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. After a second, she asked, Because of me?
No.
Because of him. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I didn't mean for this to explode. I needed the hours. I didn't want to fight. You didn't start it, Bennett said. And you're not going to lose your shifts. But we need to talk. Zadie followed him back to the dining area, where a lull in the afternoon meant only a few tables were occupied. Bennett slid into a booth and gestured for her to sit across from him. I've been watching all day, he said. Not just you. The whole place. And it's not just a staffing issue. It's culture. People are burned out, scared to speak up, and no one trusts management. Zadie nodded slowly. It's been like that for a while. After Mia left, things got worse. Who's Mia? She was the last general manager. She actually liked people.
Kept us together.
Then she left. No one said why. The new guy came in and started cutting hours and yelling. Did you tell anyone above him? Zadie hesitated. We don't really know who's above him. The regional guy came once, a few months ago. But nothing changed. After that, we figured no one cared. Bennett leaned back. That changes today. She looked at him carefully. Why now? Because I stopped trusting reports and decided to see for myself. And now I'm seeing it. A server passed by and paused. She was young, maybe 19, with a nervous look in her eyes.
Sorry.
Are we supposed to keep working like normal?
Or.
Bennett stood. What's your name? Maya. Come with me. He walked with Maya and Zadie to the back of the house, where the remaining kitchen staff lingered, near the prep area. A few looked up nervously. I'm not here to scare anyone, Bennett began. I'm here because I should have been here sooner. He looked at the cooks. Who's in charge back here? A man with heavy arms and a tired face stepped forward. That'd be me.
Luis.
You've been short-staffed. Luis nodded. For weeks. Sometimes we do full lunch rush with 2-line guys. I've been pulling doubles since last Tuesday. Why didn't anyone say anything? Luis gave a dry laugh. Said it to the manager. He said corporate didn't want to pay for more hours. Bennett looked around the room. That's not true. And it ends now. He turned to Maya. How long have you been here? 3 months. Do you feel safe bringing up problems? She shook her head. Not really. I thought if I complained, I'd get cut. Bennett nodded. That shouldn't happen. And it won't anymore. He took a breath. Here's what's going to happen. First, I'm bringing in a temporary general manager starting tomorrow. Someone I trust. Second, I'm hiring 2 extra servers and another line cook immediately. You'll get actual breaks and real coverage. Maya's eyes widened. Luis looked stunned. I'll be back every day this week, Bennett continued. Not undercover. Just present. Watching.
Listening.
You'll know me now.
He turned to Zadie.
You're not working doubles anymore. You'll do 1 shift a day, and if you need to sit, you sit. She opened her mouth, but Bennett raised a hand. No arguing. You've done more than enough. And you're not alone in this anymore. Luis crossed his arms. If you're really serious, sir, then thank you. But we've heard promises before. Nothing ever changed. Bennett met his eyes. Then hold me to it. He left the kitchen and stepped outside for the first time since morning. The air was cooler now, and the sky had shifted to a softer blue. He dialed his operations lead, a woman named Celia who oversaw the eastern region. We need to talk, he said as soon as she answered. What's going on? Midtown's a mess. I need you to pull all scheduling and labor reports from the last 3 months. And I want a full review of every store manager's performance, starting with who approved the last one here. There was silence on the other end. Then Celia said, Understood. You want me there tonight? Tomorrow morning. I'll brief you in person. He hung up and stared at the old neon sign above the diner. Faded, flickering slightly at the edges. Like the place itself. Not broken, just neglected. He'd built the business to scale. But somewhere along the way, he'd scaled himself out of sight. Not anymore. He stepped back inside. There was still a dinner rush ahead, and most of the staff wasn't ready for what was coming next. But now, at least, they wouldn't face it alone. The next morning, Bennett arrived at Midtown just before sunrise. The sidewalks were still damp from a light overnight drizzle, and the streetlights buzzed as they faded out. He entered through the back, nodding at the early prep cook unlocking the supply closet. Inside, the air felt different, not calmer. Not yet, but paused. Like the staff was holding its breath. He found Zadie already setting up her section. Her uniform was pressed today, her hair braided neatly and pulled over one shoulder. She glanced up, startled, then gave a faint nod before returning to wiping down a booth. Morning, Bennett said, stopping a few feet from her. Morning, she replied quietly. You didn't have to come in this early. I know, but I didn't sleep much. Figured I'd rather be moving. He hesitated. You feel safe here today? She looked around at the empty dining floor, the quiet kitchen, the absence of raised voices. Then back at him. For now. Bennett gave a small nod, then turned as the front door chimed. A woman in a dark blazer stepped in, carrying a leather bag and a clipboard. Her stride was brisk, her eyes sharp. Celia, Bennett called out. She crossed over and offered a quick handshake. I reviewed the files last night, she said. He had 3 official complaints in 5 months. 2 verbal warnings. No follow-up. That ends now, Bennett said. You're meeting with the full staff in 20 minutes. I want every question answered. Celia moved toward the back, already flipping pages on her clipboard. As she disappeared through the kitchen doors, Bennett turned to survey the front of house. Maya was just clocking in, her hands fidgeting near the register. She noticed him and froze. You're not in trouble, he said. She exhaled. I didn't think I was. I just didn't know if I was still wanted here.
You are.
We need people who care. She nodded, then went to grab her apron. By 7:30, the rest of the morning team had filtered in. Luis arrived with 2 large coffees, handing one to the dishwasher before heading to the back. No one was talking much, but there was less stiffness in the air now. Less fear. At 8, Celia gathered everyone in the dining area. The blinds were still down, the chairs still flipped on tables. Bennett stood to the side, arms crossed, as she spoke. I'm here to listen, she began, and to act. If you've been mistreated, ignored, or made to feel disposable, I want to know. Talk to me today, tomorrow, next week, whenever you're ready. But understand this. Silence is no longer the default. A few staff looked at each other. One of the cooks, a younger guy with tattooed forearms, raised his hand. What happens if we report something and nothing changes? Celia didn't blink. Then I didn't do my job. And I'll be replaced. Same rules apply to me. Another hand. A server in his 20s, tall and thin, with circles under his eyes. Are we getting more coverage on weekends? Last Saturday, we had 2 servers for the whole floor. Yes, Celia said. We're hiring. Starting today. First interviews are this afternoon. Bennett stepped forward. I want you to hear this from me. I didn't come here to play a role or make a gesture. I came because I failed to see what was happening. That's on me. But I'm here now. If someone disrespects you, threatens your job unfairly, or treats you like you're replaceable, you come to me. No one moved. Then Zadie stepped up beside him. What about when it's not loud? She asked. Bennett turned to her. What do you mean? When it's not yelling. When it's just being left out of shifts. Or given the worst sections. Or being told you're hard to work with because you don't fit the energy. That stuff doesn't show up in paperwork. Celia spoke before Bennett could. We're rewriting our scheduling policy. Every shift assignment gets logged now, with reasons. If you're skipped over repeatedly, without cause, we'll see it. And correct it. Zadie nodded, her expression unreadable. After the meeting, the team split off to prep for opening. Bennett stayed behind with Celia in the office. Zadie's sharp, Celia said. She sees things clearly, Bennett replied. And she's not afraid to speak. I want her considered for a shift lead role. Once she's ready, she'll need support. That staff's been fractured for months. Then we give her support. Celia made a note. What about the regional manager? He was supposed to follow up after Mia left.
He didn't.
I already called him this morning, Bennett said. He's stepping down. Voluntarily. Celia looked up. You forced it?
No.
I gave him a choice. He picked the smart one. By 10, the diner had a steady flow of customers. Bennett stayed on the floor, bussing tables, refilling coffee, watching interactions. He kept his voice low, his movements intentional. He wasn't there to command, he was there to understand. At one point, he caught a young busser, Malik, struggling to lift a tray of dishes. Bennett stepped in without a word, taking half the load. Malik stared at him. You don't have to do that. I know, Bennett said. But I should. By noon, a small emergency surfaced. A customer had slipped in the restroom, minor fall, no injury, but enough to draw concern. Zadie and Maya handled it together. One staying with the guest, the other retrieving a first aid kit and offering water. Afterward, Bennett pulled them aside. "You two didn't panic," he said. "You moved with purpose. That matters more than any training manual." Maya looked surprised. "You saw that?" "I see more than I used to." Zadie tilted her head. "You're not just fixing the store, are you?" "No," Bennett admitted. "This is the model. Every location gets the same audit, same standards. Even the top ones? Especially the top ones. If something looks perfect on paper, I want to know what's being hidden underneath." That afternoon, 2 candidates arrived for interviews. Celia handled them in the back office, looping in Luis for input on kitchen hires. Bennett watched from a distance, resisting the urge to overstep. Around 4, he stepped outside to take a call from legal. There had been a complaint filed through an anonymous hotline dated 3 weeks ago detailing consistent verbal abuse at Midtown. It had never been forwarded to upper management. "Find out who intercepted it," Bennett said. "Then call me back." He hung up and stayed outside for a moment. The sounds of the city moved around him, buses hissing, a dog barking across the street, a delivery man swearing at a jammed dolly. He looked back at the diner. It wasn't just a building. It was a reflection of leadership, of values, of blind spots. He walked back in. As the dinner shift began to ramp up, Bennett pulled Luis aside near the ice machine. "You ever train a manager before?" Luis raised an eyebrow. "Not officially. You're about to. I want you mentoring whoever comes in next." Luis looked at him carefully. "You trust me with that?" "You've earned it." Luis nodded, then returned to the kitchen. Zadie passed by a few minutes later, her tray balanced on one arm. "You staying all night?" she asked. "Until the last check's paid." She gave a tired laugh. "Guess I'll see you at close then." "You will." And for the first time that day, Bennett saw something different in her eyes. Not relief, not trust, but the beginnings of belief. By the end of the week, Bennett had learned more about Midtown than he had in the last 2 years. Not from spreadsheets or reports, but from watching during those long, in-between moments when a server hesitated before clocking out early, when a cook lingered near the dish pit just to avoid another tense exchange with a shift lead, when someone pretended not to notice an overflowing trash can because it had never been their job to care. Nothing here was broken beyond repair, but it had been ignored long enough to rot at the edges. Friday's evening shift was tight. Heavy foot traffic from a nearby event poured into the diner around 6. Orders stacked, the line buzzed, and every seat was filled within 20 minutes. For the first time since he'd arrived, Bennett didn't step and he watched. Celia had appointed a temporary general manager, a woman named Natalie with 8 years of experience running high-volume kitchens. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't hover. She walked the floor twice an hour, took notes, asked questions. She didn't introduce change, she observed what needed to change. Zadie worked the center section. Her pace was steady, her posture more upright than it had been earlier in the week. She wasn't covering as many tables, but the ones she had were turning faster. Guests stayed longer, tipped better. She even laughed once, briefly, when Maya dropped a clean fork and blamed gravity with theatrical disgust. Later that night, after the doors were locked and the last customer had left, Bennett asked Zadie to sit down with him in the manager's office. She hesitated just a moment before following him in. "Before you say anything," she said, "I don't want special treatment just because of what happened. I meant it when I said I want to work." "I know," Bennett said, folding his hands. "I'm not offering you less work. I'm offering you a different kind." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "I want to bring you in on the retraining process," Bennett said. "Not just here. Across the whole chain. You've seen what it looks like when leadership fails quietly. I think you can help us prevent that." "I'm not a manager," she said flatly. "And I'm not trying to be." "You're not.
Yet.
But I think you will be." She didn't answer right away. He waited. Finally, she said, "If I help you fix this, I don't want it to be a vanity project. I'm not putting my name on something that gets shelved once the PR wave dies down." "It won't be shelved," he said. "And your name won't be on it. Unless you want it to be." She leaned back in the chair. "Then let's start with scheduling policies. No more shift leads assigning hours without a paper trail." "Already in motion," Bennett said. "And I want a protocol for pregnancy accommodations. Not suggestions. Protocol." "You'll write the first draft." Zadie exhaled through her nose. "Don't expect me to sugarcoat anything." "I don't want sugar," Bennett said. "I want something people can trust." He stood to leave, but paused with his hand on the door. "You made it through a week that most people would have walked away from. You shouldn't have had to. But you did. I won't forget that." She nodded once. "Neither will I." The next morning, Bennett met with Celia and Natalie in the back office before the brunch rush. He closed the door behind them and sat down, a legal pad in front of him.
"We have to talk about retention," he said.
"Not just hiring.
Keeping the good people.
Building a system that doesn't punish them for staying." Natalie nodded. "We've already flagged 3 stores where the turnover rate is linked to single managers."
"I recommend immediate audits."
"Approved," Bennett said. "I want them unannounced." Celia added, "We also found that the employee hotline was being quietly rerouted by a mid-level supervisor. He didn't want bad energy reaching upper management." "Name?" She slid a folder across the desk. Bennett opened it, scanned the contents, then closed it. "He's out. Today." Celia didn't hesitate. "Already handled. HR processed it an hour ago."
He looked at Natalie.
"What do you need to keep Midtown stable for the next month?" "No more than what you promised. 1 more server. A full-time host to control flow. And Luis needs a prep assistant." "Done." She hesitated. "There's one more thing. I'd like to bring Zadie in for weekly check-ins. Not as management, but as a standing voice for the team. She sees things I don't." "She's already signed on," Bennett said. Natalie raised an eyebrow. That was fast. "She doesn't need time to know what's broken. She's been living it." That afternoon, Maya approached Bennett at the register while he was reviewing the updated floor map. "I heard you're going back to the other locations next week," she said. "I am. Does that mean things go back to normal here?"
"No," he said.
Normal wasn't working. This is the new baseline. She bit her lip. "I've worked a lot of part-time jobs. Most places say that. You're the first one I've seen actually mean it." "I'm not doing it alone," Bennett said. "You're part of this now, too." Maya looked surprised. "Me? You've got awareness. You see the people around you, not just the job. That's rare." He didn't wait for her to respond. He just handed her an updated training binder and walked back to the kitchen. In the rear cooler, Luis was taking inventory with a clipboard and pen. Bennett waited until he finished marking a box before speaking. "Anything not working?" Luis didn't look up. "The delivery driver keeps stacking frozen and fresh together. I've told him twice. Give me his name. I'll handle it." Luis looked up. "You actually will?" "Try me." He handed over a sticky note. Bennett took it, then paused. "You think this place is starting to turn?" Luis leaned against the wall. "People aren't looking over their shoulders anymore. That's something. Not enough. Not yet. But it's movement." As Bennett walked back toward the front, he passed the employee corkboard. It had been updated. Emergency contacts, labor policies, an anonymous complaint QR code. At the bottom was a small slip of paper with a question written in thick black marker. "What does respect look like to you?" Underneath it, someone had scribbled, "Not having to explain why you deserve it." By close, the staff moved quicker. Less tension in the shoulders. Less checking the clock, more checking in with each other. Before leaving, Bennett gathered the whole team near the booths. "I'm heading out for a few weeks," he said. "Not because things are fixed, but because we're building something that needs to stretch. What we've done here, is just the start. He looked at each of them. You're not replaceable. You're not invisible. You're not just labor. You're the reason this place works. He let the words settle, then turned to leave. Zadie caught up to him at the door. I'll hold you to everything you said, she told him. I expect you to, he said. And if you don't follow through, then I failed. She nodded once, then opened the door for him. Outside, the city was quieter. The neon flickered overhead, still worn, still buzzing but steadier now, like it had found its rhythm again. Bennett walked away from Midtown without looking back. Not because he was finished, because he finally knew where to start.